Imagine this. What kind of life is truly worth living? For many people today, life feels more like a race than an experience. We follow a script handed down to us. Study, work, marry, work, have children, work, retire, and maybe, just maybe, only then begin to live. This view of life is not new. Humans have always wrestled with the question, what is the meaning of life? And to explore that question, let's travel back more than 2,300 years to ancient Athens. Athens at that time was alive with energy. The heart of the city was the agora, a bustling public square where merchants sold goods, politicians argued policies, and philosophers debated the nature of existence. Among its many corners was a painted colonnade called the Stoa Poikile, or painted porch. It was here that a man named Zeno of Citium began teaching ideas that would later evolve into one of the most enduring philosophies in history, Stoicism. Zeno's path to wisdom wasn't smooth. According to tradition, he was a wealthy merchant until one day, while sailing across the Mediterranean, disaster struck. A violent storm destroyed his ship and all his cargo. Everything he had worked for was gone in an instant. Many would have despaired, but Zeno saw his loss as an invitation, a call to look inward rather than outward. Stripped of possessions, he began to search for something the sea could never take away: inner strength, reason, and virtue. Out of this journey, Stoicism was born. Today, the word Stoic often makes us think of someone cold, emotionless, or detached. But the Stoics meant something very different. They spoke of apatheia from the Greek a, without, and pathos, passion. It didn't mean apathy in the modern sense of indifference. It meant freedom from destructive passions, those violent emotions that cloud judgment and enslave the soul. The Stoics taught that the key to tranquility is learning to distinguish between what is within our control and what is beyond our control. We cannot control storms, accidents, or death, but we can control our choices, our actions, and our responses. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus would later put it, we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from the judgment we make about them. Stoicism was not just a set of catchy sayings, it was a carefully structured philosophy, divided into three parts: logic, physics, and ethics. To explain this, the ancient biographer Diogenes Laertius compared Stoic philosophy to a living being. Logic is the bone, is the framework. Ethics is the flesh, the way we live. Physics is the soul, the understanding of the universe. As Seneca famously said, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. But what is the ultimate goal of life according to Stoicism? For the Stoics, it wasn't wealth, pleasure, or status. It was virtue, living in harmony with nature and reason. They identified four cardinal virtues: wisdom, the ability to understand the world calmly and rationally; justice, treating others fairly and acting with integrity; courage, knowing what is worth fearing and what is worth enduring; temperance, the discipline to control desires and avoid excess. For the Stoics, a virtuous life was a happy life, regardless of external circumstances. Rich or poor, powerful or powerless, virtue was always within reach. Wealth, beauty, reputation, even health, they considered these indifferents. They are neither good nor bad in themselves. What matters is how you use them. Here lies a central paradox of Stoicism. On one hand, most of life is beyond your control. On the other hand, you are entirely responsible for how you respond. You cannot control disease, but you can choose healthy habits. You cannot control whether others insult you, but you can choose not to respond with anger. You cannot control the inevitability of death, but you can choose to live with courage and dignity. To live stoically is not to be passive. It is to focus your energy only where it can make a difference. Stoicism didn't stay confined to Athens. It spread throughout the Mediterranean and flourished in Rome, where three figures in particular gave it enduring life: Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. Seneca was a statesman and playwright who wrote hundreds of letters and essays. In them, he often reminded friends not to hope for easier days, but to prepare for harder ones. His advice was blunt: stop waiting for life to get better, and learn to live wisely now. Epictetus, born a slave, left no writings of his own, but his students recorded his teachings, which survive as the Discourses and the Enchiridion. His life embodied the Stoic idea that freedom is not about chains on the body, but chains on the mind. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, ruled one of the largest empires in history while writing a personal journal we now call Meditations. It was never meant for publication. It was a private struggle to live with integrity amidst immense power and responsibility. Each of them lived difficult lives. Seneca was forced to take his own life. Epictetus endured slavery, and Marcus Aurelius carried the weight of empire. Yet all three turned suffering into wisdom. For the Stoics, death was not something to fear, but something to understand. Life, they said, is a loan from the universe. One day it must be returned. Seneca put it sharply, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. We act as if we are immortal, postponing the things that truly matter. Only when we face loss do we recognize how fragile life is." The Stoics taught that wisdom is learning to live with death in mind, not morbidly but clearly, so that every day is valued. To them, philosophy was training for life, and life itself was training for death. You might wonder, how can a philosophy born over 2,000 years ago matter in the modern world of smartphones, deadlines, and constant noise? The truth is, our challenges are different in detail, but not in essence. We still chase wealth, status, and fleeting pleasures. We still suffer from anxiety, anger, and fear, and we still struggle to find meaning. The Stoics offer a clear, practical path. Stop wasting energy on what you cannot control. Live by virtue, not by circumstance. Remember that time is your most precious possession, and live each day as if it were both your first and your last. So let's return to the question we began with. What kind of life is worth living? The Stoics would answer, a life of reason, courage, and virtue. A life aligned with nature, free from the tyranny of destructive passions. A life where happiness is not dependent on chance, but rooted in character. And for you, today, right now, the question remains, will you continue chasing the illusions of control, or will you embrace the power you already hold, the power over your own mind, your own choices, your own soul? Because in the end, the Stoics remind us of this timeless truth. We do not control the length of our lives, but we do control the depth.